Okay, so some of you have created storyboards for your logos that require some use of shapes and some basic animation things that you may or may not be familiar with. So this tutorial hopefully will help you with some ideas on how to get your logo underway. So one of the things I want to show you is once you've created your object, and you can do this in Photoshop, what I did basically is I just found this image on Creative Commons, and what I want to try to do is create the illusion of some sort of lava coming out of this over here. So there's a couple of different things that you can do, and one of the things that we can do is create a shape layer. So if you come to the top here, you might see something that looks like it's going to be by default a rectangle. But if you hold it in, you can select the polygon tool or the star tool. But I'm going to select the polygon tool. And then notice that if I now click and drag, it creates this shape, and it automatically created a new shape layer. I'm going to undo that for a second. And if you actually have the layer selected when you use that same tool, what that does is it creates a mask. So depending on what is selected, that same tool will do multiple different things. Okay, so what I want to do is have a shape. So I'm going to have that shape. I'm going to have nothing selected. This was on, I clicked away, and so now nothing is selected. I go to the shape layer, and what do I want the color to be? You can change the color. Maybe I want it to be a little bit more orangey, and say okay. And now when I click and drag, it creates this shape. Doesn't look like lava, and that's okay. So what I want to do is I want to kind of make this more narrow, and I can see how it turns to the side here. I can create that. It still doesn't really look like lava. Okay, but for now I'm going to just let that be. But if you come underneath the shape layer here, you'll see that you have different tools that are all animatable. The path represents the number of points that are seen on the shape. There's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And then the position of the thing is going to be here. So like all these little stopwatches here identifies it as animatable. So if I wanted to animate this position, I can turn this on. It created a keyframe. I move this in time, and then I change the object, and it creates another path. And so now it's going to animate from that point to that point. I don't really want that, so I'm going to just select these different keyframes and delete them. Okay, so now what I want to do is how do I get the illusion of that this thing is moving, it's coming out of the top. You can have it come straight up like it's shooting up, or you can have it look like it's dripping down. I see this line on the bottom here, and if I want that gone, I can create yet another, do this right now, just create a new solid. And that solid will be black. Say okay, and I'm just going to move that down here, and I'm going to rotate it a little bit so that it matches the bottom of that thing over here, so that when the lava travels, it can go past it. In fact, I might put the lava over there. And so now when I animate this object, let's say we animate this position. Let's have it go from over here. I'm going to animate this position, rotation, and I can even do the anchor point, but it's not necessary. And now I just move it in time. I'm just going to move it down over here, so it's going to look like this. Okay, so that hard edge probably isn't working, but you can kind of make multiple edges there the more points that you make, and then it'll go past that solid that we created. Okay, so I'm going to click away. I'm going to create a new shape, and it's going to be like this. I'm going to put it underneath the dark layer, and all I have to do now is go to the move tool. Let's change this rotation a little bit so that it's And we still have that stroke layer there. So all we have to do to get rid of the stroke is go to rectangle stroke, 0, 0, and now that's gone. And so now all I have to do is take this new shape layer, which is going to be this, call it a rectangle cover. I'm going to change, let's go back to the contents, position. That created a keyframe. Move it in time, drag it down over here, and so now it's going to look like it's being revealed. Now I kind of did that sloppily, so let's go back to that keyframe, and we're gonna move the rectangle cover this way, and these are showing me the path that it's taking. So now it's gonna go from there to there. I'm still seeing a little bit over here, so maybe we'll change the shape a little bit of it so that it's hiding a little bit better, and then it's going to come and reveal it that way. Okay, so if I like that and I want multiple of these things, then all I have to do is copy, and actually what I'm going to do first is, if I like these two, so if I take the rectangle cover, I take the rectangle cover and the lava stream, and I go to layer, pre-compose, and then I'm going to create a new layer that's called lava reveal 1. Okay, so what that did, it made it, both of those things that we created, it's all one layer. Okay, that's what pre-composed is. And I take that layer and I'm going to say duplicate. So now I have two of these things that should be doing that, right? So now I have two layers that are already copying there. And so the second one, I can kind of change it around. Maybe this one, I'm going to change the rotation a little bit. Hit the letter R to rotate it. And then I can put it over here. I'm going to have to adjust that layer there. So you might have to spend a little bit more time than I'm doing, but you get the idea that once you create the one animation of the one layer, then you should be able to duplicate it as many times as you want to get the lava flowing. Okay. Now another quick trick to make it look like stuff is coming out of the top. If I create a new layer, say new, it doesn't matter what it is, let's call it a solid. And it doesn't matter the color either, it just has to be the comp size. Okay, and then I'm going to apply an effect, and that effect is going to be underneath simulation particle playground. Okay, and so what that does is it creates particles that does stuff like this automatically, and that's pretty damn cool, and it can do lots of different things by default. But you have to apply it to a layer, so you can't just put it in there. Yeah, that's why I created that solid layer. And with that selected, I can then change a lot of the materials, that the color of it. Let's say I want it to be the same color as that thing. Say OK, and then all of a sudden you've got these particles that come flying out of there. So that's an easy fix, and there's a lot of other things to know about this. With gravity, do you want there to be gravity? Do you not want? Do they repel? So the more you play with this, the more complicated you'll see that it really is. But by default, all you have to do is pick the one that you like and do something like that. So between an animating shape and the particle playground, you should be able to create an interesting effect.